All right, there we go. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Good, good. So you're Church of the Good Shepherd in Wareham, Massachusetts.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. It's an Episcopal church.
Yes, yeah.
Wonderful. Great. So tell me a little bit about how your church came to an open and affirming position.
Well, we're part of the Episcopal Church. So generally speaking, the Episcopal Church has been, for years, has been open and affirming community of churches. But at Good Shepherd in particular, I've been at the church for 10 years, just about 10 years. And in that time, it's a very welcoming community and welcoming in all senses of the word. We welcome people with open hearts and spirits into our community without judging who they are or where they're coming from in life or what their experience has been in life, what faith traditions they may have been a part of before or not. So we've always been that kind of a community. But at some point about 5 years ago, we were going through a time to renew ourselves, renewal of our community. And so we were looking at our community as first we looked within, and we looked to see who we were and what we believed, and who in our tradition, who Jesus is and what Jesus would want from us in our lives. And we looked at that as individuals first, and then we looked at it within our community. And in the process of doing that, we really affirmed or became more intentional about what we already believed and what we already felt, but it became more intentional about it. And so we had a session in that process where we looked at what could we be called to do now as a community. We believe in the love and the compassion of God that was embodied in Jesus. And Jesus's life and ministry was all about being a person of love and compassion, especially focusing on those perhaps that needed to know that message and needed to know God's welcome and needed to know God's love and compassion. And so we think, okay, what can we do? Who needs to hear that message right now? Who needs to hear it? And so we had lots of different ideas that floated about that, about right now in our society, those who needed to hear that message. And one was that we needed to hear that message needed to be heard by the LGBTQ community. Although we have been welcoming, we needed to be more outward about that welcome in our community as well. Again, with a lot of other things too. So that began the impetus of us being more intentional about welcoming the LGBT community at Good Shepherd. Again, we have been welcoming of the community in the past, but we haven't intentionally done so or publicly, so to speak, done so in our community, other than our association with the Episcopal Church. And so we thought, well, what can we do? What kind of message can we send that we are welcoming, and that is who we are, and that we are intentional about welcoming all people, and specifically the LGBTQ community. And we thought, well, what symbol represents that? We talked about different ways that we could do that, and one of them that came up was the rainbow flag, because the rainbow flag. I know when I've been shopping somewhere and I see that rainbow flag in windows, I mean, most people maybe wouldn't notice, but it means you're welcome at this store, and so it's just a sign to me, it means you are welcome here. And so we wanted to send a message, then perhaps a rainbow flag would be the way to do that. We thought, well, how do we do that? Where do we put the rainbow flag? We thought maybe put this little box on our sign, something. Then we thought, well, that's not big enough. So we got a 3x5 flag that we hang right outside our door. That's there, that just as a sign and a symbol of that all are welcome here. And if you're a part of the LGBTQ community, you're welcome here in our community. And also says who we are and what we believe.
Great.
That's how we became intentional about welcoming the LGBTQ community. But it's something that's been part of our bones, so to speak, in our community.
Wonderful, wonderful. So do you have gay folks in your congregation?
We do. Yes, we do. It's we were wondering. Okay, we do this. We'll get more folks that are LGBTQ folks that will come in, and we've had a few coming in, but we've had just as many, or maybe even more, come in because we have the flag, who themselves are not part of the LGBT community directly, but have loved ones who are, and wanted to be a part of the church that could be welcoming of them as well. So
Excellent, excellent.
yeah.
So Episcopal churches can come in different flavors, right? There's high, low, and broad. What would you describe your worship service as? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's the those kind of terms that used to mean a lot more than they do now. In some ways, there's still some pockets of them where it's high church or low church, but we're all kind of we're a Eucharistic centered church. So we celebrate Eucharist on Sundays. But how we like our music, it tends to be more contemporary. Although we'll have some classical pieces with the choir on occasion, it tends to be more contemporary flavor. So you'll hear some kind of Christian rock type music that comes, but we're very careful about what those messages are in those songs that we bring to any of our worship experience. It has to be about love and compassion. If it's not focused on love and compassion, then we feel injustice issues, then we feel that that's not what we want as part of our experience at church.
Great, great. So, and how about your personal journey? How did you come to that understanding?
I grew up in a Roman Catholic family, faithful Roman Catholic family, and I was an acolyte and altar server all through my growing up years, and then I went into the military and was part of the experience of chapel. Faith was always an important part of my life, and then at some point I realized that I had a call. I had a call to serve. I felt a call to ministry, to ordained ministry, and so I became a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. So I was a priest for 7 years in the Roman Catholic Church. I've always had an openness of spirit to me in the church. The laws and the rules of the church to me always had to be used within the context of a pastoral setting, of a particular person that's in front of me, not in a general sense. So I've always had that kind of sense in my life. At one point, I realized that I had another calling, and that was a calling to be married and to have family. I really felt that call. So after a time of discernment, it was difficult discernment because Roman Catholic Church was all I knew in my life. So to get to this point where I'm not quite sure, feel like I'm called in this church anymore, because of that stance of the church that a clergy cannot be married, I came to a point where I could not continue in order to be authentic as to who I was. And so I resigned from my as pastor from the church that I was, and eventually left the church. And in the process of leaving the church, I found the Episcopal Church.
Great.
In the Episcopal Church, I found it was a breath of fresh air for me, because although it has lots of the liturgical traditions that I was used to, including Eucharist and the sacraments, how we made decisions at Episcopal Church was very different. We made decisions by listening to one another. We made more democratic in our decisions. I really felt strongly about that. And then I was in New Hampshire at the time, and the Episcopal Church was going through a time of questioning within the church about the acceptance of the LGBTQ community, because Gene Robinson, who was the first openly gay bishop in the Episcopal Church, had just been called to be Bishop of New Hampshire, where I was at the time. And I thought, this is wonderful. That's how I felt. That was my first thing, this is wonderful. If this is a church that is so welcoming, then this is a church that will welcome me. And this is a church that I feel called to be a part of. So I joined the church at the time. I was married. I'd gotten married. We joined the church together, my wife and I, and we found a very welcoming, accepting church. And I remember a meeting with Gene Robinson somewhere in the process of being considered to be received as a priest in the Episcopal Church. And one of the first things he said to me was, Dan, says, we welcome you to the church. We'll welcome you just as you are, and you will enrich us based on what you bring to the church. And I thought, this is a wonderful message. It just kept coming. And the community that I was a part of when I first joined the church was so welcoming and inclusive. And I really felt strongly that this is my home, the Episcopal Church. And so that openness has always been a part now of my ministry. in the Episcopal Church.
Oh, that's wonderful. The joke is that sometimes the Episcopal Church is known as Catholic light, all the ceremony but none of the guilt, right?
That is said often, yes.
So if people who come from a Catholic background would feel very comfortable in your church.
They would, but they'll feel comfortable in any Episcopal church. To the most part, they would feel that way. But certainly, as people find out, although some people don't find out right away, they don't know my story. But it's about the love and compassion and the welcome of Jesus and extending that in the church, and our whole community does that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, this is going to be aired on Pride. So, do you have any message for the gay community in the South Coast?
Yeah. You are always welcome at Good Shepherd. Always welcome here. I can understand if there's been times where you've been hurt by churches in the past, or not felt included or welcome, or not be able to be the person that you are. I understand that fully. And if you have a tough time coming in through the doors of the church because of that, I understand that fully as well. You will be welcome at Good Shepherd. It's just who we are. All are welcome in our community. And at any time you wanted to to give it a try sometime and give it a talk just by talking to me and getting to know me a little bit first, that would be great. I'd welcome that. You can contact me through Good Shepherd. And right now, because we're not worshiping in our church buildings, our services are on our Facebook Live. So Church of the Good Shepherd Wareham, you can test ride us without having to come in the door. So just give it a try sometime. 10 o'clock Facebook Live on the Church of the Good Shepherd Facebook page.
So Facebook page, Church of the Good Shepherd, and the physical address is in Wareham, but what's the street?
74 High Street in Wareham.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
You can find us, of course, just check out our website and get all the information there too.
Perfect. That's really great. Well, I really appreciate the time, and I'm really thankful that you're an open and affirming church. I think it's wonderful. So we're hoping that this goes out and people hear stories, because a lot of people do have hard experiences with religious organizations, and I think one of the negative things about the gay community is they throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
Yeah,
they sort of say, this isn't for me because I've had these bad experiences, whether in Catholic or evangelical or whatever type of churches they've had. But that's wonderful. So, and can you tell me a little bit about your congregation? What would if I walked in and before the COVID and after COVID, what would you see when you walked in the door at Good Shepherd? What type of congregation do you have?
Our demographic, you mean,
Yeah.
so to speak? Or yeah, sure. We have a few young families. We have people in their 20s and 30s and 40s. We have we have majority. I say 50% of our folks are probably 60 or older in the community. So it's kind of it's a mix of folks, but mostly it's an adult community. We welcome children. We have a Sunday school for children, but we just don't have that many children in our community here. But yeah, all felt welcome, and I think a lot of the people who come to us, it's because of our understanding of who God is, who Jesus is, and what it means to follow Jesus, about love and compassion. You hear that message all the time at Good Shepherd.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So where people, let's just reiterate again, so people can find you on Facebook at Church of the Good Shepherd. Your services are there every Sunday?
That's right. Our Facebook Live services right now are at 10 o'clock. Usually we have an 8 and 10 o'clock service. But during the COVID-19 crisis, we're having one Facebook Live service at 10 o'clock on Sundays.
Great. And they can reach you at what number?
508-295-2840.
Wonderful. And especially folks from a Catholic background, I'm sure they'd really appreciate to hear your story and to hear your spiritual journey, because I'm sure a lot can relate to that.
I think it can be comforting for someone for a Roman Catholic background to know that we have the sacraments, and when you come, you'll notice the service, the outline is very similar to the Roman Catholic, but a lot of other things would change. You might have a woman as a priest in an Episcopal church. You might have a gay or lesbian priest as part of that's a that's leading.
Openly, shall we say?
No, openly, yes, openly, yes, of course.
That's the difference
Okay,
between.
I understand what you're saying. So yeah, so in other words, those things are very different. And then when it comes to making decisions, we do it in a more democratic way, feeling the more voices are heard, the more accurate we're going to be in understanding what God wants for us.
More congregational experience, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, happy Pride, Dan. I hope
Thank you.
next year we do have tables for folks, and we hope to see you next year at Pride, and we hope to have it outside and big celebration. But for here on in, this will be aired, so we're really excited about that.
Well, God bless everybody out there, and you're always welcome at Good Shepherd.
All right, thank you.